I was
All right, Joe, you're live.
use this.
All right.
Their in-house professional
That's what we're
development.
talking about,
Because, you know, my district, I
All
hate
right. How's everybody doing?
Emily
Good,
has.
last year.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm gonna not put my face on there because it's too early for you guys to see who I am. So we're gonna go right to the slides, and hopefully that'll work out better for you. I know you probably just ate, so yeah. Anyway, so that's hey, how many people are in the room right now?
10?
10.
Okay, sounds good. So, so what I'll do is I'll go through these slides relatively quickly, and then if you guys have some questions, well, I'll leave enough time at the end where you can just, if there's things that you want to kind of get through, we'll kind of go from there. If at any point you're falling asleep, just let me know, and we can kind of change up how we operate. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. So, so we're going to talk a little bit about telling the story, your school story to the world. My name is Joe, and I am a superintendent in Wisconsin, and Fall Creek is about an hour and a half, what would be east of Minneapolis, St. Paul area. So we're just on this side of Wisconsin. Fantastic school district, really good people, and just extraordinarily happy to be here. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Joe Sanfelippo FC on Twitter, or jsanfelippo.com is where you can find most of this information. So my family has lived in Fall Creek for a couple years. I also host co-host a radio show on the BAM radio network called Brand Ed, which is really essentially what we're going to talk to you about is essentially what we do on Brand Ed. And I do it with a guy from New York named Tony Sinanis, who was the New York State Principal of the Year last year. So fantastic guy, incredible leader. We just got done writing a book called The Power of Branding. It comes out in a couple of weeks. And a lot of the stuff that you'll see today kind of came out of that book. So it's been a really good experience. It's part of this Connected Educator series. So if you go to corwin.com/Connected Educators, there's a series of 10 books right now that you can go on. You can get the books or not get the books. That's not the point. The point is that there's a bunch of resources when it comes to like teaching the, the relevant educator, empowering students, flipping meetings, all of that stuff. There's just a ton of resources there. So if you get a chance to go to corwin.com/Connected Educators, you're going to find a number of really cool things going on. So anyway, and then you'll find this book too. So we had a great time writing the book. It was a great experience, and we have another one coming out soon, not soon, in January, I think, that has to do with using Twitter for professional development, which is, I think, the most underutilized professional development tool in the world right now. So anyway, we're going to talk about social media, the impact of social media, building your brand, and telling your story. We're going to do it all in 20 minutes or less, and we're going to do it in this order. I like to tell people the order, so if you're going to get any sleep, you can catch some sleep, if you don't want to learn about certain things. You're not going to walk out going, oh my goodness, I found Jesus, and I can't wait to tweet 1,000 times. That's not what this is all about, but if you're looking for him, he's right there. So this is essentially what I get when I start talking to people about using social media and telling the story of schools, because it hasn't been something that we've done in the past, and that's a problem. So the reason that we tell the story of kids, I think, is teaching is such an incredibly complex thing, and we are allowing people outside of those who are teaching to tell the narrative of schools. So what happens is their perception becomes the reality of what's going on in school. So let's say that somebody had a really bad experience 13 years ago when they were in school and now they're a parent. Well, they're still telling the story that happened to them 13 years ago. Maybe they didn't get an extra chicken sandwich at lunch or something like that. But at the same time, now they're just telling bad stories about schools because they had a bad experience. So I feel like that's not fair to our current kids. And to be honest, it's our fault. And it's our fault because we're not telling the story of students. And that's something that we got to really kind of take on the offensive piece of it, because we are, by nature, in a servant leadership industry, and therefore we feel like to serve, we can't promote. And that's not the case at all. Our kids are doing amazing things, and we should be able to tell people what they're doing. So the reason that I tell them are for two reasons. My guy over here on the left, that's Riot. He's a kindergarten kid now. And then my kids are on the right. The kids on the right first. The reason that I tell the story of kids is because I think that visibility is the biggest thing for superintendents to get out there in terms of keeping their job, to be honest. I don't think that there are too many superintendents in the world that have been fired for educational decisions. They've been fired because they do bad things with money, or because nobody knows what the hell they do, so they think they sit behind their desk and do nothing. So for me, it was really important to make sure that I was visible. The kid on the left's name is Riot. Now Riot, first day of kindergarten, 4K last year, I walked into his room. He looked up at me and he said, "What's your name? What do you do here? Where's your hair? My dad's cooler than you. He's got a big truck." I'm like, "Oh, all right, fantastic. Good to see you too." So, of course, I suspended him for a couple days. And then after I'm kidding, I didn't suspend him. But it got me to thinking that, he doesn't know what I do here. So it's important that people know what it is that I do and what my role is within the context of the school. So I think the problem that we have as connected educators and talking to people about what could happen in schools and how it could look like is it turns into, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that. And we end up shooting all over people, and nobody really wants that. I mean, nobody feels value in feeling like what they've done in the past is not working. And that's not the case here. Whatever you're doing in your classroom, it's working. But the issue is nobody else knows that it's working because it's just happening in your four walls. And we trust kids to go home at the end of the day and tell them the story of schools, but they get home at the end of the day and people say, and mom or dad say, what'd you do at school today? And the kids say what? What do the kids say? Nothing. I don't know, right? So we're trusting that scenario on a daily basis, and what we're doing is kind of flipping that model where we're putting stuff out there. So instead of saying, "What did you do at school today?" parents can say, "Hey, I saw that you were launching rockets today in science class. Tell me more about that," because they saw it on Twitter. So here's the cool thing about social media. 3 years ago, we had this. There's this whole, the concept of social media started to really take form in the educational age. And so what happened is over the last 3 years, things have grown exponentially. And there's four things on this chart that I'd like you to take a look at. The number of YouTube hours has gone from 25 hours per minute of uploads to 72 hours. Facebook shares from 700,000 to 2.4 million. Tweets from 100,000 to 300,000 in a minute. This is in a minute. And most importantly for me is the number of app downloads. App downloads 3 years ago were at 13,000 downloads per minute, and now they're 48,000 downloads per minute. The app industry and the mobile industry is just crushing it. So when it comes to where our people live, we want to make sure that we get to where our people live, and this is where they're living right now. So when I talk to people about social media, I really hope that they feel like this, but they look at me more kind of like this. And that's kind of where we sit with social media, because not everybody's into it, right? The issue is I don't want people to be left behind when it comes to social media, because it's something that we could be using and inspiring people throughout the course of the day, and we don't want to be left behind. Now, there's all these different tools that you can use, and that's why I think people get overwhelmed. And you don't want to get overwhelmed, so we really kind of break it down. This is what we use in Fall Creek, but specifically we're going to talk about these two and Instagram. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because you get the biggest bang for your buck, and we simply don't have a lot of time this morning to talk about the rest of them, to be honest. So when it comes to Facebook, this is still the king. No matter what industry you're at, Facebook is still the king of what happens. 71% of adults that are on the internet use Facebook. 63% of those check it once a day. It's the most popular social media app on smartphones, and you have to have a presence here if you're going to be telling the story of schools, because this is where your people live. So if I was to tell you that I could get you a tool that's going to reach 70% of your population, 60% of those on a daily basis, a lot of us would probably jump on that. We still do newsletters and things like that, but tell me, if a newsletter goes home on Friday, when is it usually read?
No.
Yeah, never. I heard that, right? But it's usually Monday morning when people are checking backpacks before they go to school, right? So we want to make sure that there's a better way to do it. And the thing that I get, the answer or the question that I get a lot about Facebook is, well, if we put stuff out there, what happens when people trash us? What happens when we open ourselves up and people trash us? And that, you know what, that could happen. That could absolutely happen. But we've had our Facebook page up for 3 years, and in those 3 years, we've had 2 negative comments. Both of the negative comments I chose to answer on Facebook. So, and then I got a number of really positive comments after. And I think the thing is, if you're transparent, you have to deal with the fact that transparency does come with some vulnerability. And that's part of life. So it kind of depends on the environment. I have a really great environment in terms of my community, and I have great things to say about them. So the other question that I get a lot is, what about those people who don't have access? At the end of each week, when we come to things that we put out on social media, we do a storify for those people without access, and we send a paper copy home of the tweets and pictures and posts that we do throughout the course of the week. And it kind of turns into that newsletter, but those are just, we have 90% of our parents indicate that they have email. So we email it out, and then for those 10% that don't, we send home a paper copy, and that really has helped people out. The other thing is Twitter. Now, Twitter is not nearly as active when it comes to the mainstream population as Facebook right now, but there are 300 new users a day. Almost half of those users are between 18 and 34. So think about what's going to happen within the next 5 years. 18 to 34, you're going to find a lot of people having kids and getting into your school at that point. So this is an area where you can live. 180 million unique visitors every day, and about 27% visit their Twitter feeds every day. If we're talking about a professional development standpoint, this is a great resource for you in terms of professional development. But we do a lot when it comes to telling our story in this way too, and it's been great because we can crowdsource a lot of this stuff. So we put our Go Crickets hashtag on everything, and that way then it's just not me just telling the story of kids. Now we can just, anybody sends out a tweet and they hashtag it with Go Crickets, it goes into our feed, and then on our feed we scroll that through on our website every day, and then people can see what's going on within the context of our school. We also are putting up screens this year within our school that we can scroll that throughout the course of the day, so our feed on our hashtag will go through all the time. So anyway, the other thing is Instagram. Now, Instagram is growing more than any of the other social media sites except for Facebook. So we're looking at, it's a 900% increase over the course of the last 2 years in terms of Instagram users. Who are the main users of Instagram right now? Kids, middle school kids, right? Specifically middle school girls. So we're not really catering to that group, but here's the reason that I use Instagram on a regular basis. On Instagram, if you take a look on the left side there, you can see that not only can I post something, but then I can also I can send it to Facebook and Twitter. So I'm only going through one medium, but pushing to 3 places. So it's no more work for me to do that. So that has been a really cool thing for us. So when it comes down to building your brand and talking about the story of kids, I talk about it in 3 things. If you're going to take anything from this 20-minute webinar, this is where you want to be. Build your audience, or find your audience, build your brand, celebrate kids. That's it. That's all you got to do. If you find your audience, build your brand, and celebrate kids, you're going to be in a really good place. So you can find your audience first. Now, this is the number of counties that have more bars than grocery stores in the state in the U.S., right? Look at Wisconsin. Solid numbers from Wisconsin, right? More bars than grocery stores in essentially every county in our state on Wisconsin. Anyway, that's where our people live, but it's not where they live virtually. So we want to make sure we get where they live virtually. Our parents are on Pinterest, YouTube, and Facebook. Our students are on Instagram and Remind, and they're moving towards Twitter. Why aren't kids on Facebook anymore?
Because the teachers are on there.
Because their teachers are and their parents are. You're exactly right. They don't want to live in that space. And the same thing is going to happen to Instagram and Twitter at some point. So it's not as much about the medium as it is about the process of putting stuff out there. So can somebody tell me who said this quote? Let me help you out. Nobody has ever said, I can't wait to go home and look at the district website. It simply doesn't happen. And there's not that there's not good things there. It's just nobody goes home to look at that. So we have great things happening on our website, but we want to make sure that people are getting there. So we're driving people from these spots to our website. Now here's, if you think about the context of time, this happened in 2005, this is 2013. Everybody right now wants to record what's happening in life. So people want to tell the story of their kids, of their families, or whatever the case may be. And it's happening all over the place. This is Cadott, Wisconsin. This is a small town, smaller than our town. It's a kindergarten concert. Can you see? I mean, the same things are happening here, right? We all want to record our lives. And I'm sure that's happening in places that you go to as well. So in telling that story, people feel like they don't want to tell the story because what if they get it wrong? What if something happens where they get it wrong and they're looked at as not being perfect, right? And that's a problem. This is the first letter that I ever sent to my second grade parents when I was my first year of teaching. I forgot the O, and that didn't go real well. But at the same time, people laughed about it because it wasn't the only thing that I sent out that year. If it's the only thing you send out, then people get, they'll get a little sideways on you. But if you develop social capital through multiple communications, then you're in a much, much better place. And this makes me feel like, all this technology is making us antisocial. I think there's actually a case to be made that it's making us more social, to be honest. Kids are gaming, kids are doing a lot of things, but they're doing it socially. They're not just sitting in a corner with a screen. They're all over the place doing their own thing. I kind of refer to the social media piece as being the new fridge. Because, when I was a kid, people would come over to my house, they'd look at the fridge, my parents would put up everything. I drew a circle on a piece of paper, it would go on the fridge, picture go on the fridge. And so now social media has really turned into that, where my mom can carry pictures of her grandkids all over the place and show them to anybody. She can brag about it all the time. And she's got that ability to do that wherever she goes. And the impact on us is really more about like telling the message, and not only telling the message, but showing the message. This is the same post with an added component. 180% more views happen when you add a picture to what you're doing. And we carry it all in our pocket. You have all this stuff available to you at one time. And so when it comes to that piece of it, the social media, it really kind of comes down to this, the mobile growth. If you can find a way to mobily grow what goes on within the context of your school, you're going to be in a much, much better place. 87% increase in mobile sales over the course of the next 3 years, which is going to be incredible. How many people remember the Game Boy? How many people had one? How many people want to know that that happened 25 years ago? Nobody. Nobody does, right? So we're changing. We're in a time that everything is completely different, and that's going to be something that we really need to embrace moving forward. We have a district app. An app takes care of everything for us. We can get where everybody can kind of get everything they want from our app all in one place, because we want to make it easy for people to get to where they want to go. Again, if you don't have an app, it doesn't mean you're failing. I'm not trying to shit on you. I'm just telling you that these are some things that have worked for us. And sometimes we don't really think about, like, can it make our job easier? We talk here about changing the culture of schools 1 minute at a time. Really takes less than 1 minute to send out a tweet or put out a post. And the more social capital you can build from that, the better you're going to be in terms of improvement of your school. And that's when it comes down to time. We don't want to make it like Sheldon Cooper's friendship algorithm, right, where it's way too hard and nobody wants to do it. We got to do it more like when I go out to eat, right? And I put a tip on, I just go, you know what, math, that sounds good to me, and move forward, right? It's gonna, you're gonna lay out a plan. It's gonna absolutely fail, and it's not a big deal. You just got to keep moving forward, and it's gonna be different for everybody. This is my beautiful wife and my son, both on the same roller coaster, both having a very different experience, or according to my son's counselor, it's a very different experience. So that's one of the things that we really need to understand, that not everybody loves this stuff, right? Not everybody loves this stuff, and that's okay. So when you build your brand, you think about, I want you to think about the following things, what pops into your head. Nike, Under Armour, McDonald's, Apple, Go Crickets, the stuff that we're using. Everything kind of pushes an image or something that goes on with you that makes it specific. That's what this is all about. Whatever makes it specific is what you're going to be doing, right? What makes your area different than everybody else's? If you find out what your identity is, and you can find a way to tell that story in 15 seconds, you're going to be in a much better place. We spend a lot of time talking about what our elevator speech is, or what we are truly, what we believe in. So if everybody's telling the same story, you're in a really good spot. And that obviously comes from the heart. So we put this stuff on everything, literally everything. Stress balls, frisbees, bags, shirts. We give it out everywhere. We do contests where I say first five people that can find me and tell me what the vision of Fall Creek School is, get a t-shirt. This was awesome because not only are kids running up to me to tell me the vision of Fall Creek Schools, but the parents are knocking kids out of the way because they want gear too. Okay, I'm down to a couple minutes, so I'm just gonna kind of scroll through what we're doing in terms of making sure that whatever you tell your parents, whatever you tell people that it's going on here, you really have to make sure that that's what's going on. If your brand promise doesn't meet your brand experience, then you're in a really, really tough place because people will not believe you, and your people in-house won't believe you. And once that happens, you're in real trouble. So why bother? We bother because we want to celebrate kids. We want to be transparent, and we want to give tangible evidence about what's going on. We tell the story. We change the perception of what's going on. How many people remember Miles Scott? You guys remember the San Francisco bad kid? Think about what happened during this day. 13,000 people were at this event. But take a look on the left. You got 21,000 photos shared, viewed 120 million times, right? The world took this on because of what social media did. Think about what the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge has done. It's raised over $11 million and 220,000 new donors to ALS. That's what social media has done. So, if you find a chance that you can do, these are all things that we do to celebrate kids. The only thing that you need to make sure that you do is find out what's awesome and make sure that the kids are at the center of what's awesome. Find your audience, build your brand, and celebrate kids. Beyond that, you're going to be just fine. And we always end by telling people, never give up the opportunity to say something great about your school. That's 20 minutes, folks. Do you have any questions while I got you real quick? I either really bored you or now your eyes are just too wide and you can't think about what's going to happen next, right?
Thank you. It was really good. Thanks.
No problem. If you need anything, find me on Twitter and just shoot me an email or shoot me. You can find me at Fall Creek Schools. Just go Google Fall Creek School District in Wisconsin. You can find all my stuff there. Send me an email. Shoot me a tweet. If there's any way that I can help you or your administration or your board get on board with what's going on when it comes to social media, I'm all over it. Just let me know. Together we're better. So anything that we can do to help you is we're definitely here for. So that's all I got. And if there's anything else that I can do, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Enjoy your day. It sounds like a fantastic day of learning.
It is.
Is that?
Good. All right, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah.
All right, you got to